Okay, guys, more gaslighting from the therapy field. Why therapy sucks for men. He's going to admit why it is, and then he is going to distract and derail. And I'm going to debunk this. Let's get through this.
Hey y'all, today we're going to talk about why therapy sucks for men. And that may sound kind of confusing because here I am a man, here I am a psychiatrist doing psychotherapy with men.
It's not confusing because the therapy industry is run by feminists and they hate men. So there's nothing confusing about it.
So what on earth am I talking about? Why do I think therapy sucks for men? In my experience as a psychiatrist, I do actually believe that there are systemic biases that make it hard for men to engage in therapy.
Thanks for admitting this. Thank you. So what you should be saying is that the therapy field has to change, right? He's not going to say that, guys.
And today we're going to talk a little bit about what those systemic factors are, how we can understand them, and even how to overcome some of those factors and move towards more emotional health. If you're ready to take the next step on your mental health journey, check.
If you want to deal with mental health for men, then you got to quit gaslighting men who come. Okay, let's get past this little self-promotion.
Comes from. So what we really need to understand is that the majority of patients in the history of psychotherapy have been women. About 60 to 70% of patients today who engage in psychotherapy are women.
You're right, exactly. It's a field that you just have to talk. And it's a pseudoscience. You don't actually have to know anything, really. And that's why it attracts women into the field. And women like to talk about themselves and their non-issues. And people listen to women's issues and they give them positive feedback. Men show up at these therapy sessions, they get negative feedback. It's that simple.
The other thing is that about 60 to 70% of therapists today are actually women. So I think what happened early on in psychiatry or psychotherapy is that the majority of people we were helping were women. And so when me as a doctor, when I look at 10 of my patients and I
Correction, you were only helping women with their issues and you were dumping on men.
see, okay, so it looks like talking to people about their feelings on average is the most successful thing that I can do. But
you're not talking about their feelings, right? You're talking about their issues. Men have issues that you have to deal with.
even though that's factually correct, I may not be taking into account that 7 out of those 10 people are women. And maybe the people who are getting helped the most with talk therapy or talking about their emotions are actually women. And it's not just me that says this. If you actually look at the American Psychological Association's guidance for working with boys and men, they sort of point out a systemic bias in the way that we diagnose men and women.
Thank you for admitting this. So the therapy industry is hostile to men and it has to change. That's what you have to say. That's the conclusion you must come to. Okay? And the fact that you have to separate boys and men shows you that something's wrong with the field.
And that's a lot of the diagnoses that women get, like depression and anxiety, which, by the way, women are about 2 to 3 times as likely to be diagnosed with that stuff.
Well, that's nonsense, considering the suicide rates are 4 times higher for men. So they're obviously the ones that suffer from depression more.
A lot of those diagnoses have to do with feelings and being able to articulate stuff. So, for example, major depressive disorder involves feeling sad when you're depressed, right? Makes sense. And that a lot of men are actually diagnosed with what we call externalizing disorders, things like addictions or sociopathy or antisocial personality disorder.
There you go. Anti-social personality disorder. You're putting the blame on the man, right? The man has issues. Well, the problem's with you. You're just antisocial. When men get rejected from social circles, they put the blame on them and say, hey, you're just antisocial, as opposed to the fact that people don't like men and don't want them around.
So these are disorders that involve behaviors. So I think they're sort of cluing us in on a really important idea, which is that when men feel something, they act on it as opposed to articulate it or talk about it.
No, no, no. When men have emotional issues, people dump on them. That's what's going on here.
And if we tunnel down into a little bit about how men deal with their emotions, we'll kind of see that this is true in general as well. Because if you're a man, an emotion is a problem to be solved, not something to be talked about, right? So think about like if you.
Well, the talking doesn't solve it. Like when these women show up with their issues, the talking solves the issue, doesn't it? Or solves the problem. They come to you, you give them positive reinforcement, and they feel better when they leave. It's that simple.
You get bullied on the playground and you feel ashamed of yourself and people call you a fat kid and beat you up, that isn't something you talk about. In fact, if you go and cry to mommy or cry to the teacher, you're actually treated worse.
Thanks for admitting that. So this is a systemic problem beyond the therapy field, isn't it? This is a societal systemic problem for men. So them coming and talking about their emotions don't work because you're not doing anything. You're not helping the issues, are you? That you're telling me your field is useless.
Taught that articulating problems and talking to people is cause for punishment. Instead, what you're.
Thank you. See, he admits it. Men opening up their vulnerabilities brings punishment. Thank you. And that includes the therapy field, everyone.
Supposed to do if you're a man is fix the problem, right? So if kids make fun of me.
In other words, pull yourself up by your bootstraps. See, men don't want to pay tons of money to some guy to tell them to just take care of themselves. Do it, take care of it yourself. They can do that without coming to you in the first place.
For being fat, I'm supposed to lose weight, get ripped, learn martial arts, and the next time they talk, I'm going to teach them who's boss. And so if you sort of think about it, the solution to an internal feeling ashamed, is to take an action and change the circumstances that make me feel that way. If I'm feeling ashamed because I don't have a job and I don't have any money, what should I do about that? Should I go cry?
It's funny that he brings up employment, right, guys? This is a male issue. This isn't a woman's issue. A woman losing her job, it's not the end of the world for her. She can just pick up another one or leech off her boyfriend.
Cry to mommy about how I don't have a job or don't have money? Should I cry to my girlfriend about how I'm broke all the time? No, if you're a man.
If you cry to your girlfriend about being broke, you're not going to have a girlfriend. And this guy knows it. That's why he gained status to bribe his pretty woman into his life.
And you need to man the fuck up, go out there, get a job, and start making money. If you're feeling bad in here, as a man, what we're taught is you're supposed to go fix the problem out there. And this all.
By the way, guys, if this talk therapy is working for women, it shows you they have no external problems, right? If it works for them, they never had problems to start with.
Also manifests in men's reluctance to engage in couples counseling.
Couples counseling is absolute torture to the man. It's blaming the man. All you guys know that men pander to women to keep them around. They bribe women into their lives. So any couple, heterosexual couple anyway, the man is already bringing far, far, far more than half to the table. He's already doing 90+%. So when they come to couples therapy, there shouldn't be any equal. They should be getting on the woman and saying, okay, he's doing everything for you. It's time for you to reciprocate. But they don't. They put it on the man again.
So oftentimes, if you're in a relationship, and I'm assuming a heteronormative relationship for a second, and your wife or your girlfriend says, hey, I think we need to go see a counselor, oftentimes men.
Yeah, he's right, though. You have to be a heterosexual couple because lesbians showing up are going to be treated as people and equals.
And will be reluctant to engage in that. And if you actually look at the research for why men are reluctant, what you discover is it's not that they're trying to put their head in the sand or they're avoiding a problem or anything like that. They actually feel outgunned in therapy. They feel
Well, they are, aren't they? Right?
like when they go to a couples counselor, my partner is so much better at understanding and articulating their feelings.
See what I'm talking about? See the derailment? He's blaming the man for the systemic issues in his own field. The woman isn't better. She's simply allowed and gets positive reinforcement when she expresses her side of it. And when the man does it, he gets punished. He even admitted that earlier. So he mentions the problem, then swings it into the man, blaming the man. See?
That they can sort of make their case better than I can. And when the therapist tries talking to me, like I just say, I don't know a lot, or I'm not sure, like I don't know how to, someone's asking me to play basketball, but I don't know how to dribble. And so what men actually.
This is bullshit. Like a man can't simply come out and explain what's going on in his life. This is horseshit.
Feel like in couples counseling is that they don't know how to effectively communicate. So imagine a situation where you're like going into a.
Oh, by the way, a lot of the part of the communication is the husband doesn't realize that his loving partner is exercising dominance and hostility towards him. He thinks she loves him, and so he gets confused. And then he doesn't realize, he doesn't know how to express that, right? Like you say, relationships are complicated when you don't, if you're in denial about what they are, right? The woman she lives uncomplicated. She knows what the relationship is. This guy doesn't do what he's told, and he should do what he's told, right?
Court of law, and there's a judge there, and your wife makes her case, right? She says, hey, Alok is neglectful. He doesn't appreciate me. I do so much for him. And I know he works hard, but he's really short with me sometimes, and it really hurts, and I feel really underappreciated.
Again, he's bringing up the typical complaints of the woman, and we all know, again, that the man brings far, far, far more to the table in the relationship because he's bribing the woman. That's why he even mentioned it. The guy comes home from work, right? So he's working to keep her around, and he comes home, and there's no peace in the house. All of what I do blame the men in this case, right? Like, if you want that kind of shit relationship, I mean, you got to take what you get.
And then as a man, how do I respond to this? I don't speak the language of emotions. Judge, એવું નથી. તમને સમજણ નથી પડતી.
Okay, bug off.
We as men communicate our emotions in a different way. So my favorite example of how men communicate differently is the negative expression of a positive affection. So when we like someone.
Okay, this is more horseshit, guys. More blaming the victim, right?
And we're proud of one of our homies or our bros, we don't say that to them, right? In fact, what we do is we kind of dog them about it. If my friend has been single for a while after a bad breakup and starts dating someone else, and I feel really proud and good about that, I don't say, hey, friend, I'm really proud of you, and I'm proud that you've been able to find someone.
Sure, they do. They just say it very simply. Say, hey, bro, you're back up on your feet. This is great. She's a hottie. I'm jealous now. That's how guys actually do talk, in a very positive manner.
Who sees the lovable qualities within you that I see. I'm proud that you found someone who treats you the way that I think you deserve to be treated, who loves you for who you are in the way that I love you for who you are. In the history of humanity, I do not think that sequence of words has ever been spoken by a single man. That's not what we say. What do we say? We say, bruh, GG, noob, you're whipped. I guess we'll never see you again, and we're.
Wow, now this is very revealing. You're whipped and we won't see you again. And that's negative expression of love? No. This is horseshit. What it is his friends who this guy doesn't care about. Once he gets a girl, he dumps his friends. This is standard for guys, right, guys? The average guy. He gets himself a girl to revolve his life around. She's the nucleus and he's the electrons going around in orbits. And he doesn't want to bother with his male friends. So his male friends are coming up and saying, why don't you hang with us? and he's saying, no, I got to do this or that for my girlfriend. Not because she's in charge, even though she is. He doesn't want to hang with these guys in the first place. That's what men are leaving out. They're not being honest. Their friends are second rate. They're a fallback position. Like if you go and you want your favorite food and you can't get it, then you get this other food that you like less. That's what men are. That's what male friends are to men. If you can't get gourmet food, put some oatmeal on.
We're smiling the whole time. We're not like, why don't you text me anymore? I know you haven't been texting me. I feel hurt. Instead of what we do.
Yeah, see that? So he's talked about having guys relate positively to you, but he's actually bringing up men saying, hey, we used to hang together and now you're not. Now you're ignoring me. This is a bait and switch. Did you see what he just did there, guys?
Is we actually dog on this guy, right? We're like, we call him whipped and we call him a wuss and we call him, like, we say all these negative things, right? Like, oh, where's the apron strings? We'll say all this like misogynistic crap, but the whole time we're like expressing appreciation and smiling at him.
Wow, misogynistic crap. So these guys giving their male friend a hard time is misogyny. You see, what did I tell you? The therapy industry is feminist controlled and indoctrinated, and this guy is living proof of it.
So men have this negative expression of a positive affection. When we feel good about something, we can't just say that, right? Because that's not what we were taught. Instead, what we have to do is
you're not taught that way by who? Well, by your mothers, of course, and society. Right.
To insult the person that we're proud of. That's not how psychotherapy works, right? So if this is my mode of communication, I go see my therapist and my therapist is proud of me. They don't say, hey, fucker, you got a job. You suck. I guess you're not going to be coming to therapy anymore because you ain't got this time because you got all this work to do.
Well, male friends don't talk like that either.
Screw you. That's not what your therapist says. In fact, we're trained to say the opposite. So the way that we're trained to speak in therapy is, first of all, don't speak very much, right? Don't solve problems. Just sit there and listen and ask this person lots of questions that they're going to say, I don't know to. How do you feel?
Dude, how would you solve his problems if his problem is I lost my job? Right? If all his emotional stress comes from lack of employment, how are you going to help him? Unless you find him a new job, that you can't fix the emotional issue.
Feel about that? How does that make you feel? I don't know. Well, how does that make you feel? I don't know. And so then if you're a dude and you go to therapy, you feel like an idiot, right? Because they're asking you all these questions. You're supposed to know what you feel, but you don't know.
Well, they shouldn't feel like an idiot. They should be looking at you and thinking this guy is an idiot.
And that's because of the way that we've been taught about our emotions. The last thing to consider is that when it comes to emotional health, men are very physical with it. So even if I ask a dude, hey, like, it sounds like you got dumped. Tell me a little bit about how you feel. The dude may not be able to say, I feel unlovable. I'm full of fear that perhaps I won't be able to find a partner.
Hey, thank you for admitting that. But he's wrong, because I see this from the black pillars that show up in my comment section, or black pillars I know personally. They express this fear completely and perfectly. Matter of fact, they have to go to black pill forums before they can voice that. So this is a bold-faced lie that men don't actually speak of this. They just don't speak it to this guy who's hostile to them.
I'm afraid that I'm fundamentally broken in some way that precludes me and maybe destines me to be alone for the rest of my life. That's not what dudes say. What dudes say is it felt like she ripped my heart out. It felt like she stomped on my balls. And
what are you talking about? So they express the exact same thing in a slightly different way? What? This is bullshit.
If you say that as a dude, the other dudes will know exactly what you mean, right? Like we all know, like, oh man, like, Oh, it's not just ripped your heart out, it's also a stomp on the balls. I felt that, man. The last time I got dumped, I found out my partner was cheating on me.
So they use different words to express the exact same thing, and now you're gaslighting that they're not expressing themselves?
Felt like she kicked me in the nuts, dude. I know exactly how you feel. That's how we talk. We're very physical in nature. The other thing is if you talk to
No, no, no. Those are metaphors. That is not physical, that's mental. They're just using the physical in metaphors. Talk about trying to downplay and degrade men's mental thoughts.
men about who support each other, right? And they say, if you get dumped, what's the first thing you should do? Hit the gym, baby. And that's where we may assume that this relates to confidence, that if you start
No, no, it's not just confidence. Hit the gym means distraction, right? It could be go fishing. It could mean take a vacation. Just take time. Do something pleasurable. It's not just gain status. In this case, hit the gym is obviously distract your mind and exercise your body, and it'll make you feel better.
working out, you get buff, then you look at yourself in the mirror and you're like, I'm so sexy. But we don't even acknowledge for a moment that there may be a physiological aspect to improve your mood. And one of the biggest mistakes that I think we've made in the field of psychotherapy is that we've separated out the mind from the body. Whereas if you look at modern science, we know that
While you're admitting that your field is a pseudoscience, and it's not even a good one.
anxiety is not just an emotion. It's not just in your mind. That emotions have physical ramifications. That anxiety can induce diarrhea and change the rate of your peristalsis. Anxiety activates your sympathetic nervous system and reduces blood flow to places like your stomach and increases blood flow to other parts of your body. So we know that emotions are actually very physiological in nature. So why is it as a society that we've kind of gotten on this track of simply talking about them instead of acting physically? And a lot of the men that I've
Well, you're geared up to service women, and obviously women don't really have deep problems because all they have to do is have a conversation about it and forget about it, and you make big money off that. I mean, it's pretty simple.
worked with, I've sort of noticed that this physical component is way more important than the talking component, at least compared to the women that I've worked with. Just to give you all a simple
No, this is horseshit, guys. This is horseshit. These men go and do other things like hit the gym is because you stomp on them when they open up their vulnerability. So they have to go and do something else to take care of the problems. You're not only not for them, you're against them. Men come away from therapy damaged.
simple example. I find that the men in my office need hugs way more than the women. Now, there
Thanks for admitting that. In other words, women get to exert intimacy with one another. Women like to touch one another. They like to touch men. They can touch men without any kind of repercussions, and the men can't. There are repercussions when men get physically intimate. So that's a societal issue, which talk therapy doesn't do anything for. Why? Because men have real problems and women don't.
are a lot of complications to that. There's a gender dynamic, right, between me and the woman, where maybe the woman doesn't feel as comfortable to hug me. Maybe I don't feel as comfortable to hug the woman. So I'm not saying that that's like a statement of fact.
The first one, women don't like men. And you know it.
But what I've noticed is that like hugging men, the patients in my office who are dudes, leads to like a lot more emotional healing and sometimes tears and all this kind of stuff and like more dick jokes.
Okay, so in other words, you're admitting that men are starved, right? They're starved for affection. The women get it on the regular. They're like, yeah, this guy who hasn't eaten for a week, when I gave him a meal, he was so he showed so much gratitude. It's amazing. And this woman who gets 3 squares a day, she almost didn't care.
After we're done, right? So there's something very physical about the way that men deal with their emotions. And so if we assume all of this is true, what does this mean for you as a dude? So I know this sounds kind of weird, but the first thing that I'd recommend is that you actually seek psychotherapy if
There you go, guys. Therapy sucks for men. Get therapy. You know, therapy abuses you and gaslights you. Go to therapy anyway.
you're struggling in some way. And that may sound weird because you said, Dr. K, that there's a systemic bias. Yeah, but it's still the best evidence-based treatment that we have for dealing with mental illness.
If it is, then how come these guys go and work out and do other things? How come 70% of your clientele are women? Come on. Guys, avoid therapies because this is what you're going to get if you deal with the therapy industry. Gaslighting and abuse.
Medication is just as good, by the way. And another thing we need to keep in mind is that there are randomized controlled trials on many types of psychotherapy, which show that they are equally effective for men and women. So it's not like psychotherapy works. It's just that if you're engaging in psychotherapy as a man, there may be a couple of things that we can arm you with to really make that psychotherapy really worthwhile.
Okay. I'll just skim ahead because I've made my point already. Okay, there's nothing else to look at. All he's doing is giving a snake oil sales pitch for the for the thing that's damaging men in the first place. That's broken. So I'm ending saying the obvious. Avoid therapist and therapy. They're actually damaging to the male psyche and the mental and emotional well-being of men. Okay? Thank you.